I'm calling the meeting to order if it hasn't already happened, and I guess we need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Quintero,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Chairman Kohler.
Aye. And since I do not yet see the agenda, I'm just going here based on my instinct. Is this the moment now for public comment?
Yeah.
Is.
And do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comments.
Okay, then I believe we are going straight to our first agenda item.
That's the minutes, the adoption of the
Oh,
minutes.
sorry. Right. Okay, so I do need a motion to adopt the minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Quintero,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
Chairman Kohler.
Aye. Okay, so now we are going to the monthly financial update.
All right, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Come on.
Here we go.
Now,
Here we go.
Got it.
you got it? All right.
Great.
All right, so good morning. This will be the financial update for the month ending on May 31st. So we'll jump right in here. So continue to have strong revenues. So through the fiscal year, May 31st, we're at 91.7% through the fiscal year. And you can see on the top line there, water revenues were about spot on, right on track at $73.9 million. And if you look at page 5 in your packet, you can see what those main revenue sources there are. So you have water sales, service charges, and then the watershed management fee that make up that $73.9 million. And then the other revenues there below that are another $3.5 million include rents and grants, watershed rents, watershed payments, and those kind of miscellaneous revenues. So total, we're at $77.4 million in operating revenue compared to the budget of $84.3 million, puts us again right on target. Fire flow fee.
Could I ask a question, Chuck?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the revenue is the billed revenue, correct?
Correct.
So do we age our receivables?
We do age our receivables.
And would it be possible for the board to get some kind of an overview of the aging of receivables over the past few months? I mean, I would just be interested to see, you know, if we're slipping as far as receivables are concerned.
Okay. Yeah, we could get the 30, 60, 90 schedule for the board if you're interested.
Maybe for the next finance meeting.
Yeah, we can. And just, you know, just by way of that too, I kind of pulled the, you know, I didn't look at the aging, but we looked at the delinquency information. And we do have, you know, for May compared to last May, we do have substantially higher delinquencies. Last May, we were running about 5,400 delinquencies. This May, we're about 6,400. So they're up by almost 1,000 on delinquencies. So it gives you some indication, but yeah, we can get you the aging of those too, if you'd like to see it.
Okay, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, I just have a comment and a question. First of all, a comment. Not surprising, it appears that any revenue associated with the watershed is down. And I assume that's based on, you know, the virus issues. So not particularly surprising, I suppose. But also what jumps out at me is when you look at the, I think it's the, what was it, interest payments, 446% increase. I mean, that's over budget. That's what's the explanation for that? What happened there?
Well, there's going to be a couple of components that are going to drive your interest earnings. So, you know, one of them is going to be the size of the portfolio. So, you know, as you see, we're not spending as much on capital. So your portfolio is going to be a little bit larger. But the
Yeah.
other thing that's going to drive is, if you remember, we're kind of exiting the past couple of years. Were very, very low interest rates. So, most of our investments are held in WAVE. So that's what's going to drive it. So WAVE, this year, at least pre-pandemic, was up around 1.7%, which was pretty good. It was much lower last year. So that's going to drive that up.
Okay. And how about on the expenditure side? The insurance is, 132%, which is obviously high.
Yeah. So that's kind of two components to that. One we're going to talk about in the second item. Actually, you're going to see, we're seeing about a 13% increase just in our premiums in this next year, assuming the board adopts that. But the other component of that is claims. So if you had some, if you just had higher claims this year, that's going to drive that up.
Okay. Okay.
Could I ask for one more piece of data, if we've got it, for next time or whenever you can get it, which is to pull from the Tiburon, the automated meters, a
Yeah.
breakdown of water use to see whether domestic water use is up or not.
Yeah, we can absolutely pull that. The AMI data.
Yes, yes.
Yep. And we actually, we've had a slide in here that we added in last month that kind of breaks down the major components of water use. But it doesn't identify Tiburon or the AMI specifically.
Oh, well, overall AMI, I just am using that as kind of a general name for AMI, just to see where we're at, because I'm interested to see if domestic, indoor use has gone up because of the pandemic.
Right.
And maybe outdoor use because everybody's gardening, so who knows?
Right. And again, we have some of that data in a slide that'll come up here.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem. So just running real quickly through the remainders. Fire flow fee, that's that fixed charge that's apportioned on the property tax bill. So that comes in. We've already gotten the major chunks of that. So that's why that's a 95.5%. And then capital revenues are the new CMF that was passed last year. And so we don't, we probably won't get to quite that $16.5 million expected there. So we're running a little bit behind on those capital revenues. And I think some of that too is a timing issue that we didn't charge that at the very beginning of the fiscal year. We began collecting that in September. So we show you every month the sales comparison to 19. And as you can see here, once you exited the summer in September into October, then this fiscal year, which is the blue line, starts to exceed last fiscal year, which is the red line, and that continues into May. And no real surprise there. We're, same comments as before. We're having a relatively dry year. We look at our April numbers, where April rainfall was about comparable with last year, but this year for May, we had a very wet May last year. We actually had 7 inches of rain. So this year we only had a little bit over 2 inches. So much drier season that's probably driving some of those water sales higher. And then as one of the directors had referred to earlier.
Hi, Ross. Ed Hugo's on the phone. Hey, Ed,
I'm sorry, was there a question?
I don't think so. I think I think we're good.
So this is kind of a breakdown that we added to the presentation last month, and this looks at May and what the major customer classes are there. Single family, no surprise there. With I think more people staying at home, you're seeing sizable increase, a little under 10% in usage there. What is kind of interesting, and I do not have an explanation for it, is if you look at the line there that's commercial and industrial, it's down, but it's down about 2%. And we really, I was surprised that's not lagging more. So in the previous month when we looked at it, it stayed about the same as last year, But again, because our billing cycle lags 6 weeks to 2 months, we kind of expected that, and we thought that we'd start catching up and seeing that decline in commercial and industrial usage in May, and we're really not we're not seeing that. And I again, a little bit at a loss to explain why that is stayed basically flat during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting that you're not seeing a bigger increase in the multiple, in the multi-unit buildings as well, duplexes and such.
Right.
See more there too, since everybody's staying home, but we're not. It's not.
Yeah, the only one that really jumps out is single family, and again, that kind of matches what the expectations would be. So.
Well, and obviously it's our biggest category of users. So.
Yeah.
But on a percentage basis, it's also the biggest.
Yeah.
It's also been pretty dry, huh?
Larry, Russell, mute your phone.
Sorry about that.
It's a little complicated.
And then I've got,
Hey, Larry, Russell, mute your phone.
So, and then this is the breakdown that you see by the tiers. And again, overall, you see an increase in overall usage in fiscal year 20, but most of that usage, 75% is in that first tier, and about 90% if you add tier 1 and 2. So again, no real surprises on that either. We'll switch over and look at the expenditure side. So again, we're 91.7% through the year. And if you look at that total operating expense category there, kind of the middle in dark blue, $71.2 million, we're about 85%. And again, that's to be expected. You can see the personnel services primarily, the biggest driver in that obviously is wages. That's about $25 million, that $44.5 million. And then the PERS on top of that. Put those two together, that's most of what those personnel services are. Little bit behind budget, just a tiny bit, but you're always going to have a little bit of that because of just kind of static vacancies that we have. And then you can really see the difference there in maintenance and operating expenses. They're at 76% of budget at $21.4 million. So you can expect those would slow down as we've had employees out of the office. Financing costs are right on, and those are very predictable. Those are the debt service that you pay on your 3 major bonds and the other smaller debts that we have out there. So those are well defined. Capital allocation is right on with the budget also. So overall, we're 85% of our operating expenses. And then fire flow projects, again, same comments as last time there. We deliberately slowed down expenditures on projects in that category because the fund balance was upside down as of last year. So we slowed down expenses, and we're trying to build that fund balance back up, which we have done. And then district projects, expenditures on those, capital equipment purchases, which are fleet vehicles, computers, things like that. We're 50% of budget, and the capital expenditures, as you'll see, capital projects have been a bit slower than last year, this year, and partly due to the pandemic.
Chuck, can I just stay on that for 1 second?
Absolutely.
On the capital allocation, are those capitalized operating costs? Is that what that represents?
Those are capital projects. So the capital, are you looking at the capital allocation column?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's personnel costs that are capitalized to projects.
Okay.
I'd like to point out something quickly, and I don't want to go back a couple of slides, but I think it's important to remember the metrics that we use when we talk about water quantities. There was an interruption there, so I didn't get to respond right when we were looking at it, but when you look at the increase of water usage in domestic homes, it actually equals 1 acre foot. When you take the CCFs and multiply it out, it's 1 acre foot. So it's interesting to think about how we represent the different metrics, because it makes a big difference, I think. 1 versus 500, if you will, especially when you look at the overall water supply and water usage. Anyway, that's it. Sorry.
Armando, are you referring to the increase for single family homes?
Yes.
Okay.
For the whole district, it's only, in April it was 1 acre foot, and that that calms it down, I think, quite a bit.
Slide here.
Yeah, sorry about that, Chuck. I didn't mean to.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just was trying to find the slide for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's 1,000 CCFs is 175,000 gallons, right?
But,
I think one
No,
CCF is
no,
748.
750,000.
740, yes, 748. So you take
Times
748 times
1,000.
445, and you come up with 337,000, which is an acre foot is 333,000. So
Yeah, but I think you're off by a factor of a couple zeros there.
really, okay. Well, my mistake. Sorry.
I mean, I don't mean to nitpick. It's just.
No, I'm the one that's nitpicking. So I mean, it's good to get clarification. Huh. Well, I'll play with this. We'll see.
Okay, moving on. So look at ending fund balances here. Restricted and designated fund is up about $500,000 from June 30th, so the audited period of last year. And that's, things like workers' comp, general liability, and debt service that are within that fund or within that designation and restriction. Then you've got the rate stabilization reserve fund. It's still at $9.4 million compared to June 30th. And again, we haven't dipped into that this year, haven't needed to. The fire flow fund, we talked about that. It was upside down at June 30th, and now that's at $1.8 million as we've slowed those projects down and allowed revenues to accumulate there. Pension reserve fund, we haven't touched that either, remains at $2 million. And then our capital fund has risen by $400,000 since June 30th. So total restricted and designated, we're at $52.4 million. And then the kind of the available fund reserves that we have is that operating unrestricted fund, and we're at $33 million there, and that's up from $27.4 million at June 30th. So if we break that down to operating fund balance to budget in months, we have 4.7 months available if we needed that to float us during some sort of catastrophic event. Debt service coverage, I think our bond covenants all call for 1.25. At the June 30th last year, we were at 1.4, and then we were projected at 2.7 right now. And then outstanding bond debt has gone down by about $2.5 million. You can see there down to 144.7. That's as expected as you ease that debt as we make our payments biannually. And then other debt, those smaller issuances that we have out there for things like Las Colinas Valley, $7.7 million, same as the outstanding bond debt. Those are just coming down as we pay those off. And then I'm just not going to focus too much on the capital expenditures. There's really not much change in them from when we've talked to this the last couple of months. You can see those projects are pretty static. And the big story here is that we just are not spending as much on the capital projects this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any of you had specific questions on any of those actual projects. And then just some more of those capital projects that we have with state reimbursable grants is that category there. And then IT capital projects is just upgrades that we do to our ERP system. And then you can see overall on capital projects, we're 50.4% of budget, $13.8 million. And then we've started showing you the our calculations on the impacts from COVID-19. So a lot of these are in labor. We have $198,000. So of that, about $140,000 of that is either that first category of staff labor, which is an unavoidable cost. We're tracking it for our own purposes, but that's not something we expect to be reimbursed. We're actually pursuing a FEMA grant right now for reimbursement of some of the COVID-related expenses. That staff labor one is not included in that. The other one at the bottom, there's the additional sick leave, and those two categories, staff labor and sick leave, are making up about 140,000 of that 198,000. And that sick leave is additional sick leave that's partially required under the CARE Act. And then the remainder of that, roughly $50,000, $58,000 there is, for additional contracting that we've had for disinfection of the building vehicles, and then some additional janitorial services. So that's the breakdown that we have from COVID-19 so far.
Do we have, can I just ask Chuck, do we have a sense, can you provide us with a sense of, whether and to what extent our staff has been afflicted with this? I mean, obviously, additional sick leave suggests that some of them have, unless it's incidental.
Yeah, I can weigh in on that. So far, the district fortunately has had no confirmed cases.
You got to fix your audio, Ben.
Yeah, Ben, you're coming in warbly again.
Still.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might have to sign out.
Yeah, unless you have a really bad sore throat.
Chuck, while we're waiting for Ben to come back, I assume most of the staff is still work from home, right?
Yeah, almost everybody's working from home, and as far as just what I've heard of being in meetings, we haven't had a lot of direct COVID-related infections. We've had some that have been exposed and are being tested, but I haven't heard of a lot of actual cases of COVID within the district.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can, I don't know what you shared while I was gone, but we've had no employees that have been diagnosed positive with COVID.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it is, fortunately. We've had a number of employees that have had direct exposure from a spouse or something like that. And when that occurs, in fact, right now we have 3. We have them at home until they are tested and confirmed positive, and based on the nature of their work, we may place their work unit at home too for some duration. So kind of adaptively manage. If an employee did come down, now we do have direct support from county health in terms of the response and disinfection of the work site and contract tracing, but we haven't had to go into that yet.
Wow.
Thank you for that update, and I'm glad people are well. That's great.
This
Okay.
is Armando. Chuck, is it possible to send us all this slide set? I didn't see it in the links that we got, unless we did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that concludes the presentation on finance. If anyone has questions, go ahead there.
Any board questions on this item?
Nope.
No, thanks.
I have a couple, and it's more to the management team. I was on the mountain for a 20-mile walk on Saturday, and I was up there for 9 hours. There were people everywhere. It wasn't crowded, but there were people everywhere. And we went on some remote trails, and we even encountered small groups there. And we also came across one medical evacuation that our rangers were working on. And the ranger, and I can't remember his name now, but he said they had had several medical incidents on the mountain on Saturday. And so I'm really wondering what the impact is on the watershed staff. And I don't know if there's any financial implication there, but there's certainly, as the chief ranger told us at our last board meeting, he said that weekends are like holidays and weekdays are like weekends. And I really experienced that. And there were a lot of people out there that clearly were not prepared to be out there. And I just want to set this up to say that we need to be careful in coming conversations to not confuse the pressure for bike access with COVID, a COVID response of much more crowded trails. And I really do think that from what I saw, having been a park ranger for a long time, I really would like to see us, and this is a fiscal question, see us consider what it would look like to do the right staffing for the level of activity that's going on up there right now.
I'll just jump in, and I won't get into details because Bob will cut me off because this wasn't on the agenda.
Okay.
I saw him leaning forward, but no, I just wanted to update the board. There has been some associated similar comments that have come from the board, and we've seen it. So we are planning at the upcoming board meeting, we're bringing a staff report to review COVID-related conflicts and what we've been doing, and to have that agendized and get into a broad discussion there. Also, Chuck is kicking off the 10-year financial plan, where we'll be looking at a range of programmatic opportunities and needs, both capital and operating, with the plan and understanding there'll be board interest to explore resource levels in the watershed as in context of the broad district needs. So that, and soon we'll be bringing a schedule for how we're going to roll that out and engage with the board and the public in the development of that plan.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the monthly financial update before we move on to the renewal of the annual insurance policies? Okay, let's move on to item 3 then.
And Cynthia, I just want to mention there's no public comments.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
Okay.
Can the board still see my screen here?
Not yet.
No? Okay.
Are you sharing a screen with us now, or?
Trying to.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. So what I'm going to do here, we actually presented this to the operations committee last week, and we just had a couple of slides, the items in your package. I'm happy to go through the slides, but basically this is the last of 6 slides in the deck, so I thought I'd start at the end, and then if you had questions on anything, we could work backwards. I've also on the phone, we're on the call with us, we have Seth Cole, who's the Senior Vice President in Alliant Insurance, and then we have Matt McManus, who's Vice President at Alliant, and they're the ones who did a lot of the work on putting these recommendations together for us. So I think, again, just if I'm kind of jumping to the end of the story, your total premiums are increasing by 13% to $741,000. So one of the directors had asked a question during the finance presentation about the cost of that insurance. And here you can see the component of that, which is the premiums, are going up markedly. And a lot of that, as you can imagine, with, especially with property insurance, a lot of that's based on, the environment in California, and think of all the wildfires and those kind of events that we've had over the past several years. And then some of it's related on a national basis with hurricanes and things like that we've seen. So part of that's what's driving up those premiums. And then the other thing that you'll see if you're looking at the item there in your package is that the self-insured retentions and the deductibles, and those are just different terms that are used, whether it's liability insurance or property insurance, those are going substantially higher, which means that the district will pay more out of pocket for any kind of insured events that we have. But we've kind of, in looking at how to select the options for the insurance, we kind of balance what the risk is based on what our experience is over several years against, the cost of bringing that self-insured retention or deductible down. So as you bring that, down, the premium goes up. So we kind of found a balancing act in there, kind of looked at what the experience of the district was and think that we're okay with those increased SIO deductibles. And then one of the things that you'll see mentioned, there's a attachment that kind of briefly lists out all of the options that were given to us and compares them to our previous insurance coverage. And we had asked for options on coverage for our dams and specifically earthquake coverage for district infrastructure. And we did not recommend that because the costs were just prohibitively high. So that's where we fall with the insurance item.
As far as you know, have we ever had a claim on either of those two, either earthquake claim or something resulting from the dams?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing that I've seen on the, no, nothing related to the dams that I know of. If Matt or Seth, if you guys are on the call, if you know of anything, but no. And I think,
Yeah, Seth here. Hi, everyone. And Chuck, not to our knowledge either.
yeah. And just you know, as we talked about with the operations committee, you know, if you did have a large event related to an earthquake, you know, your FEMA is going to be your insurer of last resort there. So that's kind of also why we try to keep those operating reserves, so we can get through something like that while we wait for FEMA recoupment.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just going to say, you know, I looked at it again. The only thing that kind of jumped out at me this time is Alliant is not an admitted carrier. So that has some degree of risk because admitted carriers have reinsurance from the state of California. So I don't know, you know, I mean, I do think it's, you know, the best bid and, you know, don't think it's a reason to pull back. But the question I was going to ask is whether the excess carriers, if any of our carriers are admitted or not.
And I can take that. Most of the carriers that participate on your insurance program are admitted carriers. As you noted, on the property insurance program, there are a number of carriers that are non-admitted that participate on that program. And one of the things that we do as far as diligence is we look at two different things. The state of California has a list of eligible surplus lines insurers. And so we ensure that those surplus line or not admitted insurers are on that lastly list. And then secondly, we look at the AM Best rating. AM Best is a financial strength rating organization that rates insurance companies essentially their ability to pay claims. So we want to make sure that they're at least rated A7 or better because that ensures that they're financially stable insurance companies. So there's a couple of things that we do to mitigate potential risk from non-admitted insurance companies.
Okay. Okay, just a point for the board to be aware of, that's all.
Okay.
So that, if there are no more questions, we're just asking the board to approve the renewal of the insurance.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any further board comment on this? And then Sharice, do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment, Director Kohler.
Thanks, then we're ready for a roll call vote.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Director Quintero, Director Russell,
Aye.
Chair Kohler.
Aye. It looks to me like that brings us to the end of our agenda. Is there anything else then?
No, that's all we have.
Great. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Chuck.
You too. Take care.
You.
Thank you, dude.